Well, I've had a full day. This is the 75 Norton. The wiring, which I've been working on, is about, I'd say 90% complete, pending testing. These wires go to the coils, which are mount right here. So those need to be hooked up. All the wiring on the battery is complete. And over here, I've completed all the wiring that goes from the front of the bike to the tail end of the bike, and all the connections are right here in this little bundle. So the tail end of the bike is wired. These wires, interestingly, I'm 90% sure that all of these wires are superfluous, just flat not needed, due to the installation of electronic ignition system and the solid state charging rectifier regulator solid state eliminates the need for all of these wires. Once I prove that during the test, I will truncate them and cap them all off up here nice and short so they won't be hanging out in the wind. The center bike wiring is complete and all lashed up, out of the way, ready for the tank to be dropped on. The headlight is up here. All of these connectors are reconnected, and the instrument lights, one is missing. I'll have to get another one. This needs to go in here and be connected, and the individual front turn signal wires need to be connected. Other than that, all these wires are back together and will be smushed inside the headlight, and everything should theoretically work. The LEDs up here are all wired, and everything's nice and tight, so hopefully they will work, because they're a pain in the posterior. And all of this should be checked out in the next couple days. The new glass is installed on the speedometer, and I won't be able to work on this bike tomorrow. I have to take the little BSA and put it back on the lift, pull the wheels, get new inner tubes installed, and that will finish it up so it can be packed up and taken to Sturgis as a nice display bike. Anyway, that's the status of the Norton. It was a full day, got a lot done, and that is all. Okay, this is, we're working on the 75 now. And this is one of the situations where my favorite saying, the fun just never stops, is really kicking in. So I'm finishing up the headlight wiring, which I had finished up before I parked it a 3 weeks ago. This was all complete. The only thing that wasn't complete was the wires that go to the turn signals, and I did those yesterday in my spare time. And today, all of a sudden, the dashboard lights stopped working. So we got in here to see what I did wrong and couldn't find it. Started shaking wires and realized, let's walk over here, that these spiffy little LEDs, they're not made for automotive work use. And they use the world's smallest little wires. Maybe you can see those little bitty so-and-sos. And look at this. I'm going to see if I can tilt this up so you can see. The wires completely broke off at the back of that LED. I had already fixed these two wires. That's my soldering from a couple of weeks ago when I worked on this. And I'm going to give up on these LEDs. They're spiffy, they're cute, but frankly, they are a pain in the tush. So right now, we're pulling these LEDs out. Kevin's going to get a socket or a wrench that'll fit in there. We're going to find out how big these holes are and decide what kind of lights we're going to put into it. All right. Let's start taking this apart. So that's what we're doing today. Gee, this is just so much fun. Okay, this is sort of another prequel. Um, in between the previous segment of this video and the next segment, we got the wiring pretty well connected and had all the systems working and spun the engine over with the starter and got good spark. And then we did a couple of other things, found out that the dashboard lights weren't working. They were working, but they're suddenly not working. And one of them's dead. The other one's, I guess two of them were dead, 2 out of the 4. And so we yanked the dashboard out. And we talk about the fact that the LEDs in there that were working weren't working. But more importantly, after doing all the wiring, we did a spin test and got good ignition, good spark. And I don't know, we went off and did something else, and we came back and decided to do a video of the good spark. And we spun the motor and spun the motor and spun the motor, and we had no spark. I mean, 5 minutes ago there was spark, and now there's no spark. What happened? What did we do? We're in there tearing the wiring apart for a second time. Just one of those crazy things where it suddenly went away. Well, after Kevin had gone home for the day, and I'm standing there messing with this thing, it suddenly, I realized that the the run stop switch was working backwards. So I put the run stop switch in stop, spun the motor, which is possible, and had good spark again. So this next little segment talks about how I took the run stop switch apart and found out what was wrong. Now, by the way, I don't think that the 75 Norton, should spin the motor if the run stop switch is in stop. That's just stupid. People will sit there and grind the motor, run the battery down, and not realize that they've turned the ignition off, but the starter still allowed the motor to spin. So when I put it back together, I always change the starter wire from ignition to the ignition kill, white with yellow wire, so that if the run stop switch is in stop, pressing the starter button will not have the engine turn over. It'll only turn over when the run stop switch is in the run position. That way people won't run the battery dead trying to start a bike with the ignition turned off. So anyway, here comes the second segment of this little episode, and you'll see what I found. Okay, this is a very serious example of why we say the fun just never stops. This is the engine stop switch on this bike. That's the run position. And this is the off position. Well, we were trying to test the spark, and we knew we had spark, and we thought we were seeing spark, but all of a sudden we couldn't find spark. And it was like crazy because we'd had spark, and we went nuts trying to trace out what happened to the ignition. I mean, where'd it go? So finally, after messing around with off and run, we realized it was installed backwards. This is the off position. This is the run position. So I took the switch assembly apart and found out that the switch has a switch plate in here, right about in this position underneath. And it was installed upside down. Don't know why, don't know how. I wouldn't think it would be possible because stuff like this is always keyed. And this one actually had a notch in it for keying, but nothing that corresponded to that notch. So it was possible to put it in upside down. And somebody did. So anyway, it took a bit of doing. And now it's working properly. And I'll put it back on the bike tomorrow because it's just too darn hot in here to work. So anyway, that's the fun just never stops.